Hello everybody, and welcome to the fourth edition of Digital Leader Salon with me, Edward Rushton.
And me, Simon Valfish.
Okay, Simon, so tell me, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Edward. I'm really enjoying life in lockdown. Not. What about you? You're not really locked down, are you, in Switzerland?
No, it's all happening here. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well, and which is strange because today we're going to be talking about a song that is a very depressing piece of music, a very sad song. It's absolutely the opposite of the way I feel right now. And the song is called Nicht mehr zu dir zu gehen by Brahms. This means not to go to you anymore. So tell me, Simon, this comes from our recent Brahms CD. Tell us a bit about our Brahms CD, and then we'll talk about the song.
So this is our CD, Songs of Loss and Betrayal, released now on Resonance. And this song that we're going to talk about today, Nicht mehr zu dir zu gehen, is the second song of his Opus 32 by the poet Daumer.
So just a quick summary of the poem. It's in 3 strophes, very short. In the first verse, the poet says, "I decided never to go and visit you ever again, but I go to you every evening because I've completely lost any sense of strength and self-control." The second verse, he says, "I don't want to live anymore. I just want to drop down dead on the spot. No, I do. I just want to live for you, with you, and never die." And then the last verse, this is the crux of it. "Just tell me one word, a clear word, with which you will decide whether I live or die, but I just want this one word. Tell me your true feeling." And that's the end of the song.
Edward, have you ever been in this situation before where your entire self-worth and willingness to live or die hung on the slightest whim of somebody else?
Well, Simon, it's interesting you should ask that. I'm sure most of us can identify to some extent with this situation, or been somewhere like that before. But I think we shouldn't fall into the trap of mixing biographical elements and interpretation of song. I think even if you or I had never been in a situation like this and could not identify in the least with the sentiments in the poem or the situation that the protagonist finds himself in, we would have to imagine that. We'd have to put ourselves into the feet of that character and try and think what it would be like to be so completely obsessed with somebody and so completely in despair that this somebody was not giving them what they wanted. Even if that what they wanted is just simply the word no. It might be that, as he says at the end, even if you say no, then that would be a clear word and it would tell me your true feeling, and then that would be fine.
Stop stringing me along. Give me a clear answer. And it is agony. And for those of us who've been in that situation at some point in our lives, and for people who have yet to experience it, this song has so much resonance. Even this idea, I will live or die just on your word. Whether you say yes or no, it doesn't matter to me what the answer is. Gib mir ein Wort nur, ein einziges, ein klares. Gib Leben oder Tod mir, nur dein Gefühl enthülle mir dein Wahres.
So this is a song for people who have been or are being strung along. That's what it's about. The great thing about it is, of course, though, it being art and music and poetry, is that it's not it doesn't come out clearly in favour of this is a song against the art of stringing people along, and neither does it say I want to be strung along. This is something that is a good thing. It's not good or bad. It's the grey areas, isn't it? This is the situation. It's tearing me apart, but it makes a good song. You know, I'm able to talk about it. I'm able to make a poem about it. And Brahms is able to make an absolutely storming song about it. So it's all about this being split up inside, being torn apart, and yet the situation engenders an incredible work of art. So it's very typical romantic style. We get a lot of this in Schumann and Brahms. Schubert, of course, if you think of the Schöne Müllerin, where he asks his brook just to say one word. He says his life hangs on this one word, yes or no. Does she love me? Yes or no. So this is this typical romantic poet who's on the one hand, on the reality level, suffering greatly from not knowing, from uncertainty, but on the other hand, is able to sublimate his feelings into song, into poetry, into composition. So this song, which we're talking about today, is this very, very inward-looking, tearing oneself apart sort of masochism. I want to have the self-control to say no more, to forget you, not to go knocking at your door, but I don't have it. And so I just always, every day, repeatedly let myself into the situation where I am again going to be a victim again and again and again, until you say in a clear way yes or no, and you know that this isn't going to happen for a long time. Why don't you tell me about the music a bit, about the vocal part, because it's quite interesting how he sets the poem, isn't it?
Just the very beginning, where you have this low Nicht mehr zu dir zu gehen, beschloss ich und beschwor ich. I get this feeling of you're trying to climb up, sort of drag yourself up by your fingernails, and then down again. And then we try again. Und gehe jeden Abend, denn jede Kraft. There's always these falling semitones. The phrase keeps sort of stopping and halting, and then the piano comes in again with these sort of halting phrases until we have the espresso animato. Ich möchte nicht mehr leben. I don't want to live anymore.
There's a lot. So the thing is that when you listen to it, and also when you see it on the page, it's quite striking how many rests there are in the vocal line. Wouldn't you say? I mean, you're right. You keep stopping.
Faltering.
It falters.
Yes.
You're just getting into the swing of the melody, and it stops, and then there's just fragments of melody.
Yes.
So sing it again. We can hear that. It starts off with a full sung phrase, and then it stops, and then you just get little tiny bits.
Nicht mehr zu dir zu gehen, beschloss ich und beschwor ich.
Exactly. So even one of these little fragments, it consists of just one note. Und.
Und.
You have a rest, you have und, and you have a rest. So that's the terrible state this chap is in. He can't even string a melody together.
I feel like he's slumped with his back to the wall of her house late at night. And he's just, oh, I'm here again. Oh, I hate myself, but I can't not be here. And it's this awful, awful situation. I don't know whether she even knows he's there. Perhaps she's in there with another man and he's just sitting there under her wall listening. Who knows? It's just the absolute
that's the great thing about these. You can fill in the gaps for yourself. Everyone who's been there, can put their own story onto it. And the other thing, when you went like that. So he groans, doesn't he? He moans and groans while he's there under her window. The moaning is in the piano part. When you have your rest, the moaning happens. You see, he goes like that. So the motif that Brahms uses for the words beschloss ich I was determined, comes again and again in the piano part as these little moans. And you can tell it's really a moan because there are 3 notes, but they're joined together by what's called a slur, which looks like a very sad smiley, and they're joined together by the crescendo and the diminuendo. It goes, again
I'm
and
glad,
again.
Edward, we found a song that I can actually play at the piano.
Yeah.
This is fun. Something that's within sort of grade 7 category for me.
Well,
Thank you.
just be careful what you say because people might think that being a piano accompanist is an easy job.
No one is saying that being a collaborative pianist, as the politically correct terminology is.
Well, why don't you give us then, since you're so good at playing and singing at the same time, give us the whole first page.
All right, I will. Nicht mehr zu dir zu gehen, beschloss ich und beschwor ich und gehe jeden Abend, denn jeder Kraft. Just want to introduce my little boy who's come to say hello.
Hi, Manny.
Hi, Manny. Manny's got his handbag. What a nice handbag. Look, show Edward.
Oh, Manny, good hair today. Very good.
So in answer to your question, no, I can't play the whole first page. No.
Well, never mind, we get the idea.
You can say bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye. I'm going to talk about the second verse.
Whee! That's fun, Daddy.
That was fun, wasn't it? See you later, Manny. Yeah, tell me about the second...
I'm going to tell you
About the second
because
verse.
this is, if you
Oh,
remember,
dear.
I don't know if our viewers remember 2 weeks ago when we talked about Schumann's Sehnsucht nach der Waldgegend. And we talked at great length about the passage in the middle of the song where the mood in the poem changes completely, 180 degrees turn, but the music didn't. The music kept on going in the same place and changed gradually. We have a similar situation here in the second verse. As I said, he says, I don't want to live anymore. I want to drop down dead on the spot, but I do want to live. I just want to live for you and never die. So the 2 halves of the verse say completely the opposite thing. And there's a massive mood swing at that point in the music. So Brahms is doing here what Schumann didn't do in Sehnsucht nach der Waldgegend. And so it would be really good to hear that, actually, with the greatest possible rush of blood. There's a massive crescendo. There's an octave swoop, an upwards octave swoop in piano and voice, slightly apart from each other. The massive sort of portamento going upwards. Yeah.
Ich möchte nicht mehr leben, möchte Augenblicks verderben und möchte doch auch leben für dich mit dir und nimmer sterben.
So you can also hear in the piano part the sort of waves of emotion that are happening. Again, here every bar he's got a crescendo and a diminuendo within every bar, so it sort of lurches along. And there's also obsessive repetition of this groaning motif. I never want to die. Again and again is very, very, very obsessive, very tragic, very worthy of our pity and sympathy. But I just love this moment where suddenly after the darkness of the first verse, he gets into the mood of the sort of lyrical mood. Ich möchte nicht mehr leben. Suddenly the whole thing turns around and ecstatic almost about the idea of death. We wanted originally, partly because of songs like this, to have a sticker on the front of our CD, Johannes Brahms, Songs of Loss and Betrayal, danger, warning, can induce feelings of suicidal feelings of despair.
No, so what we had, I thought of, was saying warnings contains references to suicide,
Yeah.
which is a proper legal thing. I don't know about in Switzerland.
Well, we don't have
but
so much of that yet. We're going to import a lot of that stuff, I think, bit by bit.
But it's true that it's better not to talk about it, because people who are considering suicide, even the very mention of it, could be a trigger. So in some ways, that the poetry in this group of songs that we've chosen have very strong, depressing, dark, horrendous stories.
Yes.
This is all going to get cut, I think.
No, it's interesting what you say. It is interesting. I wouldn't cut that. I think the point is, though, and you will, I'm sure you'll agree with me, because you must have been in emotionally turbulent situations.
Never.
But never. But
It's been just smooth runnings. All the way through my 20s, everything was just cool. Never had any turbulent relationships.
I'm sorry. But what happens is, if you're in a turbulent situation like this, you turn to poetry and song
Yes.
for solace. And of course, it's depressing what happens in the song too, and you feel, oh my God, yeah, this is exactly how I feel. This song is about me. It's about me. But you know that it's happened before. You feel this connection to the poet. It's a folk poem, as well. So it's not just the poet. You feel a connection to the whole pool of humanity that over the millennia has been in this situation. And you feel a connection to Brahms because he's depicted it so well. You have friends, there's someone there who's been there before, who knows you, who understands you, and is sad with you. And that's a help. But I can imagine that if you are in a very bad frame of mind, it would actually help you to listen to or to feel the connection to very dark music like this, because you know then that you have a like-minded person there. Whereas if you then filled your ears with very, very happy music, it might just point out how great the difference is, how great the chasm is between your own state of mind and, say, a jolly Mozart serenade or something like that.
I can remember at college being in a practice room and playing through some Schumann Lieder and just weeping in a really pathetic way. But actually, there has to be that connection. I think that if you haven't cried just reading a poem that you're then going to sing, then it hasn't really twanged any of your strings. And it's essential to, even before you get to the music, it's essential to read the poem again and again and again and again until you can really feel it, and until it can physically make you cry if possible, or at least you can put yourself in that situation, or make a story for yourself of where you would be were you there. And then you have to then take a step back once you're then singing the song and presenting it, so then people can do that for themselves. You're opening the door for them to go through that process through your performance, rather than spooning it out, your own stuff. But it isn't, I feel like, I don't know about you, Edward, but I do feel it's important to internalize these emotions strongly as part of the process of learning the song.
Absolutely, of course. It's completely necessary. And I think you've touched on a very interesting point that I would actually quite like to get across to our audience, which is, this is why, despite what people say, poetry and song are, let's say, relevant, because they touch on these matters of deepest communal humanity. yeah, this idea of identifying. It's not some elitist thing. You go to a concert and everyone's wearing posh clothes, and there's a singer up on the stage and a huge piano, and they're wearing what you call the tailcoats and stuff. It's not about that, you know. These songs are very, very direct, and they very directly speak to us, even today in the year 2020, even though they were written, you know, whatever, 200 years ago. It's all modern because it's all about what it means to be a human. So I say to those young people who may or may not be listening, this is about you. This is about your feelings that you're going through now at the age of 14, 16, 22, 25, 30, our age. It's about what it means to be a human. And if you can tap into that, you were saying when you were at college, you were weeping over Schumann songs. Absolutely. If you can get to that material at that age and absorb it, because you know exactly those are the strong feelings that happen at that age, then you will have this resource for life. You have a reservoir of emotion that you can draw on, which you can then use to perform, to interpret, to communicate these very, very important, very deeply human ideas and stories to an audience. Yeah, so that was my tip for, you know, young music students.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I really hope this that these videos are useful to everyone, to anyone. If you're studying the song, if you're interested in poetry, or if you want to learn more about it. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to get your feedback, and we would love to hear suggestions of songs that you would like us to talk about. And you can support this program by subscribing to our YouTube channels. You can also donate via PayPal. You can also buy our CDs, which either Edward or I will sign for you, depending on who you buy it from. And what else can you do?
You can just listen to the music. Yeah, of course, it's really great if you follow us and if you like what we're doing, if you like our interpretations, if you like these little snippets of thoughts about the songs, then you can do all the things that Simon says. But the most important thing, of course, is to get stuck into those songs. You know, get your teeth into Brahms and make Brahms your friend. You know, make what he's saying into what you feel.
And please click on the end of this video onto the link to listen to Nicht mehr zu dir zu gehen by Brahms, and we would love to hear what you think about it. Edward, thank you so much. Once again,
Thank you.
Such a lovely highlight to my week to chat with you about these fantastic songs.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. It's been a great pleasure as usual. See you next week.
See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye, Simon.
Bye, Edward. Sorry, I was a little bit kind of clueless.
Were you distracted because of your kids, maybe?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise going on with the kids.
Yeah.
And just...
It was fine. It was fine. And maybe the next time we'll make sure that you say more and I'll